Welcome back. We're still talking about the Paris Olympic Games. Watching in the game over here, I'm Onyinyechi Obaro. We have a frenzy of sporting activities that will be on parade when the Paris Olympic Games begins just 9 days away. So this is the biggest sporting fiesta, offering chances to a lot of people to understand what new sports that they would like to align themselves with away from football. So we'll be having fencing at the Paris Olympic Games, and fencing is one sport a lot of people feel is sword fighting, but it is not sword fighting. You're also correct if you say so, but we've got an authority in the world of fencing joining us on In the Game today. He is the president of the Nigerian Fencing Federation. We've got Mr. Adeyinka Samuel. Thank you so much, Adeyinka, for joining me on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
I've been wondering, fencing, sword fighting, and all, but I remember when growing up, I remember we always used, sticks, irons, and go the whole, fighting with, our friends, and we thought that was, sword fighting. But the revelation from the Olympics says this is fencing. This sport is called fencing. Why the name fencing? What is fencing?
Thanks for the question. Fencing actually has a lot of history behind it, especially when it comes to the Olympics. Fencing is one of 4 sports that has been in every modern Olympic Games since inception. And there are 3 weapons in fencing. It started back in the 14th century. This was in Egypt before it was taken into what it is now, which is called modern fencing. And back then, people would use it as to challenge an opponent. So it was a duel. You challenge an opponent to a duel, and you go back, you practice in your different weapons, be it, there are 3 weapons, foil, épée, and sabre, which we'll show later. And then on the day, you would typically do épée. And you would now, have this challenge. And back then, it was sort of fight to death, but of course, it's now modernized, is what it is right now. And, that's where fencing comes from. That's where it's evolved into.
Okay, one would have thought that something like this should be called something related to swords, because you use swords. Why fencing? You would not even think that fencing is all about the use of swords.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of, because the French word escrime, which stands for fencing, so that's really where it sort of evolved from, escrime. And that's sort of where the name has come from. So everything has different languages to it, but it sort of started as escrime, and that's, the French word for fencing.
Okay, I can see on display right now the kits for one who is a fencer, if that's the name called for one who indulge in this kind of sport. Can you elaborate? Tell us what kits, equipments are needed for this sport. Okay.
So we have different equipments because fencing is regarded as one of the safest sports out there. The first thing is before you're allowed to fence, you have to be fully equipped. And fortunately, we have somebody in the studio, and I'll show you the different equipments.
Okay.
So right from your mask, right from the head to your feet, you have to wear the proper gear. That's very, very important. And then the type of gear that you wear is very key and is regulated, so to a different standard. So we have the mask, if the camera can show. So we have an athlete here, you have the mask. Depending on the type of competition you're doing, or if it's training, it's either 350 Newton is the force required to pierce the mask. So it's very well protected. This is an international competition mask, so that's 800 Newton. Okay. Then you have a jacket. Now our jackets are actually, if you zip down, our jacket are actually made out of Teflon, which is the same material as bulletproof. The only difference between our material, our equipment and bulletproof is that bulletproof, you have a thick sheet at the back of it to absorb the impact. But in terms of the actual durability of the material, it's the same as bulletproof, which is Templar. So you have that, and then you have, under that, you have what is called an underplastron as well. You have to wear a glove, right hand glove. So it's the same hand as your weapon hand. So if you're left-handed, you'll be on the left side. You wear your breeches, which is the bottom shorts that you wear, your socks and your trainers, which your socks have to go up to your knee to ensure that you're fully protected. Those are the equipments that you have. Then you now have the 3 weapons which I mentioned earlier. Foil, which is the most flexible of all weapons, and it's a point to hit the target. That's one. Épée, which is also a point to hit. It has a bigger guard because your target area is wider. So the épée, you can hit the arm as well. As a result, your hand has to be protected. As opposed to the foil, which is just your torso, front and the back as well. But the épée is from your head to your toes. You can hit anywhere on the body as a valid point. And then you have saber. This for me is my preference because when I was fencing for Nigeria, this is the weapon I used. It's the fastest of all 3 weapons, most aggressive when it comes to action. It's a cutting weapon, although you can hit with a point, but you can cut with the sides. When I mean cut, you're not cutting through, it's just you touch with the sides. And it's what the high-rank soldiers used to use back in the days, the ones that protected the king and the queen, because they sat on a horse, and as a result, they would be in that position. So you wouldn't hit below the waist, because if you hit below the waist, you will most likely hit the horse. So the target area is the waist to the head, arms included. That's where the 3 weapons come from, and sort of be modernized to what it is now.
All right, these explanations, I'm really intrigued by these kits and the equipment used for this kind of sport. But I would love to ask, if you tell someone to go into football, the only thing they are bothered about would be getting a football, getting just a jersey, and they can wear anything available. If you tell someone to go into basketball, it's just getting the ball, you know, that they use in playing, and also a little bit of kit, something armless, and then go into the court. But fencing, you have to get the épée, get the saber, get the foil, get the gears, every single thing, the helmet, and is a total wear down. I'm telling you. But I would like to ask, Adeyinka, can anyone afford a fencing kit, or is this sport only for the elite?
So I think in regards to your question, yes, a kid can just pick up football and play, and basketball and play. But of course, if you want to do it properly, you want to also put on the right gear. In terms of shoes, you don't want to hurt yourself. In terms of basketball, you need to have the right shoes so that you land properly. So with fencing as well, there are different grades and standards. So as I mentioned earlier, what I just explained online is actually the international standard. So that's
So that's what we're going to see at the Paris Olympic Games.
Yes, so this is actually what they're going to be using. It's 800 Newton, that's the standard. The mask is 1,600 actually, is the Newton, and the body wear is actually 800 Newton. So my bad for that. Now, but we have lower gear that you use for training, which is 350 Newton. So that, of course, is less expensive. Regardless, you need to put that on because safety comes first, and we have to be well protected. So that's on one side. If you're fencing with metal, which is what I just showed you, which is what they call the metal one, you have to be fully protected because safety comes first in the sport. Now, we also have plastic because there are ways we introduce it to younger children, and then you don't need to have all that gear. We have the plastic mask and just like a bib that they wear with a plastic foil. But yes, equipment is key. We need, this is also where we also try and get support to get sponsorship for this sort of things. But it's in those areas. If you're using the mask, the metal, you have to be fully kitted. If you're using the plastic, they also have foam. It's not it's not as stringent in terms of the equipment you wear.
Oh, Mr. Adeyinka, I think you've not even gotten to that point where you answer if this is an elite sport. People know the sports that they can go into, a layman can go into, a common man can go into tomorrow and say, no, I want to drop football, I want to go into fencing, I want to drop football, I want to go into tennis. Is this an elite sport? Can anyone afford? Tell us how much, if we have to buy it, can anyone afford this if they decide to go into fencing?
So the nature of fencing, it is the history of fencing. It is an elite sport. But what the good thing that's happened over, I'd say, a decade plus, is that our former president, when I mean president, international president, put in a lot of effort in making it more affordable and accessible to everybody. And even here in Nigeria, what we do, and I'll give you a bit. We've been working with Suburb, Lagos State Education Body Board since 2017,
okay,
where we've introduced fencing to 9 local government areas. So Mushi, Shomolu, different places. We have a hub in Lagos Island where we train close to 200 children from less privileged backgrounds. And we've introduced fencing to 3,000 kids. And through there, 10 children have been awarded sports scholarship into private schools. So
this is from the Federation?
Yes, this is from Nigerian Fencing Federation. We've been doing this program since 2017. And to even make a statement in regards to that, because grassroots is very key. Sports in grassroots is key. We had 2 athletes who went through this program. They graduated from a private school in Abeokuta. Through our program, they got into the school. And these 2 children have competed for Nigeria, representing us at the African Championships, including other tournaments. In the African Championships 2022, Nigeria won 12 medals. And these 2 children won 4 medals between themselves, 2 gold, 1 silver, and 1 bronze between themselves. And they came through this program. So yes, the history of fencing comes from an elite point of view, but it's gotten to a stage where it's more accessible to everybody. And we've done a lot to make it more accessible to everyone.
Okay. I know that fencing will be on the lookout at the Paris Olympic Games. So can you just expatiate a bit? How is it scored? I know you've talked about target areas for the 3 categories, the Sabre, the foil, the Épée. How is it scored?
So for the foil and Sabre, the first 2 weapons I mentioned, just to show you, foil and Sabre, they are scored based on priority.
Okay.
So it's literally who the referee sees as initiating an attack. So if someone initiates an attack, because it's based on real life scenarios, if someone is coming to stab you with something that is sharp, you either get out of the way, or you defend yourself, which is maybe you block it, it's a parry, and then you riposte. At that point, you've blocked and riposted. That is now priority has switched from the person attacking to the person that has parried to riposting. So that is how the referee, awards points for that, and they look at who has priority. Now for Épée, it can be double hits. So priority doesn't matter as long as two lights show. Then they give awards to points to both people. If one light shows one person, you would score in the Olympics. You're going up to 15 for each bout. It's 32 fences per event. So they don't mix. So Épée, male Épée, female Épée, male foil, female foil. There's 6 events. Male saber, female saber, and they fence each other. And then it's up to 15 points, and then you just progress. Direct elimination.
All right, I'll be looking out for that so I can understand when we're seeing the rankings and the points given by the referees there. It's a disappointing one that Nigeria will not be represented at the Paris Olympic Games for fencing event. Another opportunity awaits us in 2028, I believe, but preparations begins now. What are the plans in top gear by the Federation to make sure we have at least one representative at the Paris Olympic Games? Let's start off from African Championships anyway.
To get into the Olympics is actually very, very difficult. We've been fortunate once we had a lady who qualified for the Olympics. Jackie managed me, and it's only one person from Africa that is selected per event, per weapon. So it's taken in different stages. First, you either qualify based on you being the top 16 in the world. So you have to be
by
in the
rankings.
Top, yeah, by rankings.
Okay.
Then you qualify through teams. So if a team qualifies, then the people in the teams also go through. And then they now do what is called the zonal qualification. And they pick one person from Africa. We had a lady...
I'm sorry to butt in. For a sport like this, why don't
Yes.
you give a chance, make the qualification gap, broaden it a bit to have more representatives from different countries? It's a bit stiff. The qualification process is a bit stiff.
Yeah, see, it is quite steep. But that's what it is. Those are really decisions by the international body. Literally, we had, as I said, we had the lady that qualified the last time. Unfortunately, she didn't go forward because of certain political reasons, but she actually qualified for Nigeria, which was a shame. But this last qualifiers, we had two of our fencers. One of them got to the semifinals, Somto, a lady which at some point will come on the show, and Nkosi, who also did incredibly well, and he got to the quarterfinals. The great thing about them is that both of these fencers are only 16 years old, and they are doing incredibly well. Nkosi is currently 55 in the world ranking.
Yeah.
And Somto, I believe, is about 60 something in the world ranking as well. So they're doing incredibly well for their age in particular, and to have gotten to where they got to. I think, no doubt, the next Olympics, they are definitely going to be there. Okay.
The news of Nkosi Bruce sparked a lot of reactions, even hearing that the USA had enlisted him in the All-American team. And I'm a bit worried because when we see talents like this is an opportunity for Nigeria to just jump at them, nurture them, make them understand that they can represent their motherland. I know he's the grandson of former NAFDAC, of course, director that's of blessed memory, Dora Akunyili. So his grandmom is from here. He's got this heritage from Nigeria. What is the Nigerian Fencing Federation doing to get Nkosi Bruce, someone like Nkosi Bruce, to represent us before the US will hijack him?
Yeah, no, he fences for us. Nkosi fences for us. He represented us at several competitions. This season has been a fantastic season for him. That's how he's pushed up to the world ranking of 55. He just finished the seniors. As I said, 16-year-old boy fenced against literally the best fencers in the world, because a lot of the Egyptians are top fencers at the moment, and he beat a few of them. He finished 7th at the Senior African Championships, and he did very well at the Junior World Championships. He's done close to 10 competitions this year alone, because he's really pushing for his point. So he fences for us, and he's very, very keen to continue to fence for us. So he's one of the people that we, are our biggest prospects in terms of fencing.
All right, we'll be hoping that this stays. Nkosi Bruce would be groomed from his age at 16 right now to when he becomes an adult, having to fence. I know he fenced in the Sabre category, and that's a very huge one. He is a 16-year-old having to fence in the Sabre category. Is that not too tough for a young boy?
No, not really. It really just depends on where, what weapon you choose to go for. But yes, he's
But
a
which
very
of the categories will you
talented
say is more difficult?
So I'd say Sabre is quite difficult because it's very technical, and I'm speaking from experience because I personally, when I started fencing, I fenced foil, and I was able to do well foil and épée, but I eventually moved to Sabre and sort of finished my fencing career as a sabre. But it's a lot more technical than the other two weapons.
The reason why it says, I am saying, of course, Uburu is really taking a lot at 16 to be fencing in the Sabre category.
No. I mean, if you start off a Sabre, you can just, so there's no particular, it's not age bound.
Okay.
It's not age bound.
So great one there. It's been an interesting conversation with you, Adeyinka. I really appreciate this is knowledge gained. So when the Paris Olympics starts, the fencing event starts, I know I'm in good hands. I understand the scoring right now, and I understand the 3 different categories. Is there any plan by the Federation to garner more people? As you did say that there is a program. Is there any plan in motion right now, as I did say, to get people's interest into this sport?
So typically we try to promote it as much as we can. So on our page, social media, Nigerian Fencing, at Nigerian Fencing, and on our website, we try and promote as much so that really just creates awareness and people understand the sport. Because I think that's one of the challenges we've had in the past, that people don't understand the sport.
Yeah.
And then as a federation, what the things we have been doing as well in Nigeria are what is helping to promote the sport. So I'll give an example, which this is news to a lot of people. Nigeria Fencing Federation has the rights to host a World Cup. So some of these fences in the Olympics are coming to Nigeria in December.
Wow.
We're going to be hosting the World Cup.
Would that be in Lagos?
Yes, in Lagos.
Fantastic.
And Nigeria is the only country in sub-Saharan Africa that has the rights to host the World Cup at the moment.
Great.
We're hosting the Senior African Championships in July next year, 2025. And we are the front runners to host the Commonwealth Fencing Championships. It's out of the Commonwealth Games, and it will be the first time Commonwealth fencing will be in Africa. So we're making, even as a federation, our athletes are doing fantastically well. But we, as a federation, there is a lot that we are doing.
Yeah, a lot.
And we are just trying to get it out there so people know more about the sport, and it's brought home to Nigeria. And it allows our athletes, because all this competition, like the World Cup, gives world points. And this is how people can secure a lot of world points for their athletes locally.
All right, I'm hoping that what we've done today gives better understanding to this sport, and people can embrace it more. They call them a lesser sport because football is the most popular sport, but you can shift your attention to something beautiful like fencing. Thank you so much, Adeyinka, for joining me on the show today. It's been an interesting conversation with you because I learned a lot, and knowledge is something I do not joke with. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.